I want you to think of like a crime problem is also a social problem in our society, in which the way we treat it is an incredible double standard. I can't come up with a way to ask that well. You don't even know what I meant by that, right? And if I ask it more directly, it will make the answer obvious. Name the crime that we treat so most dramatically different on the basis of gender. Do you have it now? That's it. See, but that made it too easy. We have a crisis in our society of women who beat up men. The reason that crisis exists is women get a free pass on it. Very few men call the police when they are the victims of domestic violence, even when it's very bad. There's a stigma. There's no stigma to a woman who's beaten up by a man. There's sympathy for that person and her plight. There's a stigma to a man, even though the man is in a position where he's in a no-win. If he retaliates, likely when the police arrives, he'll be arrested. They're forced to sit back there and take it. And even when there is an arrest, nobody's particularly bothered. I want to talk for a moment about the case of Preetha Kuradayara. She's a member of the Elmbrook School Board. She was arrested and criminally charged with a bad case of domestic violence. She broke her husband's nose when beating the hell out of him. He later told police that this has been his life for some time, that he has been a long-term victim of domestic violence. He finally called the cops, finally moved out, he's finally done. A man who was arrested for beating the hell out of his wife would be forced in an instant to resign from a government body. Preetha Kuradayara is not only still on the Elmbrook School Board, her fellow members voted her the treasurer of the board this week. That is a disgrace. The fact that school board members would elect a monster like this to be a leader in a school district. Now, let's go back to the story. I was talking about double standards that we were mentioning a little bit earlier. Aisha Carr, who was the one reform member of MPS, the only one who stood up to him from administration, was forced to resign from the board after Milwaukee police and the DA's office began an investigation as to whether she lives in her district. Kuradayara, who opposed the referendum, clearly the union and the powers that be, through the administration, were going to get her. They had a GPS monitoring and search warrants on her, tracking her every move. She said she lives in the district. Where you live is obviously vague. Many people have true residence. That's been going on forever. I mean, when Henry Royce was a member of Congress from Milwaukee, Henry didn't live at all in Milwaukee. He didn't have any residence. He listed an office building as his residence. Marlon Schneider, former member of the state legislature from Wisconsin Rapids, lived 365 days a year in Madison. He didn't live in Wisconsin Rapids. So that whole thing has always been, there is a case in Waukesha where an alderman, Cummings, has been facing criminal charges for supposedly not living in her district. So it's a case in which there's a fair amount of history. But in any event, Aisha Carr has moved into the district for some time now. They've been tracking. The allegation was that she wasn't living in it after she was elected, even though she is now. So everybody knew about this all along, but now that she decided that she was going to be on the non-pro MPS side on the school board, they decided to go out and get her. So she's off the board. Ask yourself what's worse, beating up your spouse or not living in the district that you represent. She lives in the city, but not the district. Again, I'm not suggesting that somebody elected from a district shouldn't live in the district. Of course they should. But what's worse? So again, you see Waukesha County with the standard of leniency, where the members of the school board have not moved to oust this person, even though she's a leader of a group that, children who beats the hell out of her husband. But somebody who, and by the way, Kuradayara is part of the liberal wing of the Elmbrook School Board, which controls the school board, which is also the explanation for this. If she was one of the I don't know if it's a 9-member or 7-member board, but it's either 4-3 or 5-4 liberal, whatever it is. Kuradayara is part of the liberal wing, no matter what she does. If Kuradayara didn't live in her district, you think she'd be forced? No way. So what's worse? So you have the two double standards, first of all. Since she's on the left, it's perfectly fine, and we're even going to promote her to a job. And, in the end, they're not going to do a damn thing for her because she's a woman to beat up man. And the second double standard of, there are people listening to me right now, guys who are beaten up by their girlfriends or spouses. It's a huge problem. And it's not treated seriously even when it's reported. It's almost laughed at. Why? Woman takes a vase and cracks it over the husband's skull, fractures his skull. Guy grabs a vase, cracks it over his wife's head, fractures her skull. We all know that the reaction to this from our society will be dramatically different. And this creature on the Elmbrook School Board, and the fact that she's still there, and she has colleagues that will stand by and support somebody who would behave the way she does. Why have no media members pounced on the Elmbrook School Board leadership and other school board members, demanding to know why they don't seek to oust her from office? And in the case of Aisha Carr in Milwaukee, the deal she's cut with the Milwaukee County DA's office is she's not going to be criminally charged for not living in her district so long as she resigns. Will the Waukesha County DA Sue Opper use the leverage of the criminal charges against Preetha, hard to say, to force her to resign from the Elmbrook School Board? Again, likely not. When you're a lefty, I'm not going to say you can get away with murder, but you can get away with a lot. January 6th is the ultimate example of this. I talked earlier in the program about letting out an accused first-degree attempted murderer on a measly cash bond in Waukesha County when people on January 6th who weren't accused of any violence, they're in the wrong place. They're in the building. Okay, I went over and I bumped into Nancy Pelosi's laptop, who were held for 2 years without the ability to post any cash. This is what our country now is. And there are many people that are perfectly fine with it because they believe that if you are right of center, you don't have any rights at all. You are the scum of the earth, so therefore we can justify doing anything to you. In the end, all of this is their own fault. There are people who live in Brookfield who aren't standing up demanding that this woman resign from the school board. The evidence against her appears compelling. What, her husband broke his own nose? Well, but it's just a woman beating up a guy. And the funny thing about that is they almost pretty much come out and say it.